Hi, welcome back to my channel. I wanted to talk about the 5-1 rule of relationships because it's something I've come across and just I wanted to talk about it. So I think it can apply to any relationship, so like business, friendship, family, because I'm just learning more and more how, like, obviously as we're in a new astrological era, which we are, if anyone cares to know, how like we move different. If ever you've seen any of my videos, I've talked about my moving different. I watched a video as a little tangent and side note about the occult and which I don't really do videos about on here, but how, before anyone freaks out, just how there's been different time periods of the past, okay, through history, and there are things like we are evolving through time to be able to get to a place that we are now in our current epoch, and just how human beings have evolved even scientifically through thousands and thousands and millions of years, like to be the developed creatures that we are now, compared to millions of years ago where we weren't so diverse in our ability for evil, in our ability for manipulation. We were much more simple. It was a much more simple time when we were cavemen, and then when we were evolving through life to the kind of, I don't really know which, I think they talk about Atlantis time periods, where it was somewhere between cavemen and modern day, where, I mean, I don't know in terms of years, but it was very simple. Like, there wasn't, it was more like an expressive time. You just kind of, I don't want to get into all the spirituality of it now. My point of this, talking about the 5-1 relationship rule, is I think especially, we all have our negatives with our positives, usually because of just the way we're built, be that narcissistic or sociopathic, psychopathic traits, even if you're like not diagnosed, or just negative traits, toxic traits, whatever you want to call it. And I find that to maintain healthy relationships, especially with things like family that aren't friendships, the thing is, stranger will always, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with socialising with strangers, they are a great part of life, and meeting new people and eventually evolving that into relationships is great. But I do think that strangers are, because they're in a honeymoon phase, will often meet you where you are, validate what you're saying, validate like things that you know are doing, and not kind of criticise you or call you out often, unless you're like one of those people where you just do that, and often I find that quite annoying. When people do that and you've just met someone and then they're like willing to like give you life advice that you haven't asked for, so I just hate that. But anyway, but yeah, when interacting with people in general, that's kind of one thing, but when you are dealing with people that have been in your life for a long time, for example family, it really helps me, and work sometimes, to, not always, because I think in work relationships there's a hell of a lot of flexibility that can go into work relationships, and not everyone will want to build a work relationship with you in the way that you want to build one with them. I just think there's this very, very small level of rapport that needs to happen in most work relationships, just to the point where you just sort of don't physically attack them. Even if there's like a few like snide comments, that's pretty normal in workplaces, obviously, because obviously not everyone gels perfectly. But I'm talking about relationships that are not completely honeymoon phase, and not complete, even like romantic relationships I suppose that you've been in with for a long time, or like long-term friends. But often friends and relationships, romantic relationships and stuff, are often I don't know,